Right, I think there's still some people joining, but I think we should just get started there. So, morning, my name's Zopash and I'm on the marketing team here at Bridgel. I just wanted to thank you all for joining us this morning for our getting your organisation ready for Copilot session, where we'll be discussing how Copilot can benefit your business. Just a few wee notes before we get started. So the session is being recorded and we will be sending out a copy of the recording and the slides after the event. So if there's anything that you want to catch up on, you can do. Also, if there's anybody in your organisation that wasn't able to make it, you can share the details with them. We are on mute at the moment, but we do encourage you to use the chat function to ask any questions, and we will do our best to get them answered throughout the session. That's roughly the main kind of points covered. Oh, sorry, I can see that you can't hear. Apologies for that. Can you hear me okay just now? Is it still some issues with the audio? Yeah? Okay, perfect. Sorry, if there are any issues with the audio, just let me know and we'll try and figure that out. But it seems like it's, yeah, people are saying some people can hear, some can't. But we are going to send the recording and things out anyway. So hopefully that'll be all right. So yeah, what I was going to say now is I'll hand you over to our team of experts, Graham McLean and Josh Giles, who will be running the session. So I hope you enjoy and find it useful. And yeah, thank you. I'll hand over to Graham. Thanks very much.
Thanks, Zopash. Good morning, everyone. Hopefully you can hear me okay. We'll just move on to the agenda. So today what we're going to do is we will just take you through the kind of a bit about the background, the kind of importance of AI in general. We'll give you a bit of an introduction to Microsoft Copilot as well. We'll talk about how you can get ready for Microsoft Copilot in your organisation. Touch a wee bit about effective prompting as well. And we'll have a look at the Copilot licensing. And then we'll talk a little bit about kind of extending Microsoft Copilot and custom Copilots as well to give you an idea of where you can go and what the technology can do. So, as Zopash mentioned, it'll be Josh Giles, who's a Microsoft Solutions Architect, and myself, Graham McLean. So I head up the Modern Workplace practice. They'll be taking you through today's session. As Zopash had mentioned as well, feel free to post any questions in the chat as we go. If you want to hold back any questions, then there will be a kind of Q&A session at the end if we've got time. If you post them in the chat, if it's in the kind of flow of what I'm going through, I might stop and answer the question. Otherwise, what I'll do is we'll pick up the questions all at the end. If I'm not going to go on and describe it or I don't see it. So yeah, if you post it in the chat, we'll get round to answering those questions as well. So before we start, just a little bit about Bridgel for those people who are new onto the call or don't know too much about Bridgel. We're based in Glasgow. We've got 44 staff at the moment, established in 2002, going for just over 20 years. We work across a number of different pillars or areas. So we've got the modern workplace pillar, really focused on improving kind of employee productivity and satisfaction. So really that focuses on all the areas across the Microsoft 365 stack. So really everything like SharePoint, Dynamics CRM, Power Platform and Power Automate, and now Copilot as well. We've then got the managed IT services and support area. So really that covers the kind of security, the infrastructure and cloud services. So we're moving workloads to Azure, managed IT, looking at your cyber security, those types of aspects as well. And then we've got an application side, which looks at supporting and developing kind of large-scale bespoke software solutions and business intelligence as well. And then lastly, Trevi, which is a product which we have in the water sector. So it sits a little bit separate to the others. We're also a Microsoft Solutions partner across those 4 areas that you can see in the grey banner there. Previously, we're a 10 times Microsoft Gold partner before Microsoft came along and changed the rules again and kind of mixed up the accreditations as they do from time to time. We're also a Microsoft Content Services preferred partner. So on the Modern Workplace side, that gives us access to the engineering team to get some early access around what's happening with things like SharePoint, Syntex, Copilot, those types of technologies. So we're one of 26 of those partners worldwide. We're also ISO 9001 and 27001 certified, and we're Cyber Essentials Plus certified as well. So we work with a wide variety of customers as well, right across the kind of private and public sector and across a number of different industry verticals, particular kind of manufacturing, housing, local government, for example, but quite a few different logos there. So just moving on to today's webinar then, just want to touch a little bit about why is AI so important, first of all. So I guess the thing is, as more is kind of expected from smaller teams, and the pace of change is increasing, then we really need to find ways to make simpler tasks easier and to help people focus on the more complex tasks that they've got in hand. So AI really comes into its own where it can help you save some of this time, and it can help you focus on the tasks that are really going to make a difference. So if we look at the stats on the slide, the stats are from the 2024 Annual Work Trend Index Survey. And I guess they kind of reflect about, how widespread the problem is of getting through, the kind of simple day-to-day tasks and getting through your kind of workload day-to-day. So another stat from there, 87% of leaders believe that AI will give their organization a competitive edge. So in the main, really, they're looking for AI to help them, reach new customers. So try and extend their reach and grow their business. To try and streamline processes. So to try and, make some of that work that I'm talking about, that day-to-day work, easier, make it easier for the flow of work throughout the organization as well. And also accelerate productivity. So if we think about change, and we think about where we are with change, it took the internet 7 years to reach 100 million users. ChatGPT did it in 3 months. It tells you a little bit about the kind of pace of change that we're experiencing now. And I guess the expectations that people have about how easy it is to do things, or how easy it is to carry out tasks, or how easy it is to kind of interact with your business as well. So that just brings us on to Copilot, obviously one of a number of different flavors of kind of AI and large language model technologies. So what is Copilot? So Copilot provides a natural language conversation interface that really just helps you kind of interact with data. It helps you create some automations. It can help you kind of build applications. It can assist with coding tasks as well. So it's fully integrated with the Microsoft 365 stack and the Microsoft 365 platform, and really gives you a more kind of interactive and efficient digital workspace as well. So if we look at how Copilot works, and apologies, there's quite a lot going on in this slide, but I'll try and kind of distill it down a little bit. This is essentially how Copilot works. So effectively, the way you can think of it is a bit of an orchestration engine between the large language model and Microsoft Graph, which effectively Microsoft Graph kind of sits behind Microsoft 365. You can think about that as your kind of collective context of work. So effectively everything you've got access to within Microsoft 365. So the process starts with the prompt that you give to Copilot. So can you recap this meeting, for example? What happens is it will go then to Graph to look at the data set that it's working with. and then it will go to the large language model to try and interpret what you're saying. Once that call comes back, it goes via graph again, and that allows it to do some further checks against like the compliance and the security to make sure that you're not getting data that you don't already have access to, or you're not getting data that is, past your kind of security boundary. So that's all well and good, the kind of mechanics of it, but what does that mean for users on the ground? So how are people kind of typically making use of this technology? So we've picked out some personas to talk about how these roles within the organisations would typically get a benefit and see a benefit from using Copilot. So here we've got an example of the HR manager. So they're looking to, kind of look at current market trends to try and identify like, pay scales, compensation. They're looking to find and hire, onboard new staff. So they've got a number of different tasks that they want to carry out. If we look at that across the different kind of applications that Copilot can help you with. So in Outlook, for example, it's probably about, summarising and being able to respond to lengthy email threads. So being able to kind of take a full conversational email thread and be able just to summarise that quickly to understand the kind of the crux of it, to then be able to go back in an effective manner. It might be that you're putting out some communications, some formal communications within the organisation. So maybe you're looking to try and get Copilot to help you streamline that or write that in a more kind of authoritative manner. On the Excel side, it could be that you're looking to, create some formulas to kind of determine salary raises or reorganisation structures or something like that on that side as well. And then in the PowerPoint side, it could be that you're looking to, pull together like an onboarding presentation. So ask Copilot for all your onboarding information and get it to go and create a presentation that's kind of visually appealing for people who are new people into the role, people who are going to be onboarded. If we then look at it from the sales side, we've got, similar needs there. So somebody that's looking to kind of evaluate products for go-to-market and looking at, filling out tender responses and doing activities like that. So for them, really, similar to the HR manager for the Outlook stuff, but possibly on the Excel side, they're looking at sales and production data. They want to identify like top sellers. They want to identify their kind of profit. They want to look at research for tenders and model the best kind of products and things to pitch as well. In Word, they're looking to kind of be able to summarize documents. They're looking to be able to do tender responses. They're looking to be able to kind of pull together sections of text. And this is one area that really helps with, because Copilot is part of that Microsoft 365, you have access to everything that is already in there, that you already have access to, for example, in SharePoint. Pardon me. So say you have a repository of information from like previous tenders, or you have a repository of information about your products, you can very easily ask that to pull the information out of those tenders, to pull the information about those products, and then to display that in a way that you can go back and answer the tender. So yeah, I think there's a question there about what is an RFP, effectively just a request for proposal. So really just another word for a tender. So the salesperson is, that's their kind of day-to-day tasks, and that's what they'd be looking at. But it's a kind of effective like use of their time, to try and use Copilot in that way. So if we extend that thinking out, then we take the HR department. If we look a wee bit wider at how Copilot could be used across the department, this example shows us how, the department could use something like Copilot to reduce the work that's required for the kind of end-to-end workflow, if you like, around hiring and onboarding new staff and making that easier. So talking about kind of collaboratively across the department, being able to, create job descriptions by asking Copilot to suggest skills, qualifications, responsibilities based on maybe existing job descriptions that you already have, extending that out to the wider team to get them to review that. Having Copilot kind of look at CVs that are coming in and extracting the skills, experience, and the qualifications from a set of CVs, set of resumes as well, to help you just kind of analyse that without having to look through all the CVs in detail. Using Loop, which is a fairly new technology within Microsoft 365 as well, effectively creates a kind of almost like a live list, which you can send via email, you can send through in OneNote, and as people update the list, it updates the list when you look at it. So if you're looking at it in the email, you can see when new things are added. If you're looking at it in OneNote, you can see when new things are added as well. So it's quite an effective way to do things like, create an interview, almost like crowdsourcing kind of interview questions that you might have for the position as well. And then being able to, do a group interview in Teams, summarising the kind of contributions from the candidates as well, right through to that kind of offer letter, creating the offer letter for them, and then onboarding materials in PowerPoint as well. So you can see how Copilot could touch quite a lot of different areas across that kind of one kind of process of work, if you like, of taking somebody new on. So moving into the kind of getting ready for Microsoft Copilot section. So in this section, we're going to just talk a little bit about, some of the groundwork that needs to be done to be able to get the best out of Copilot. It's not, some people are just kind of, purchasing Copilot, switching it on, but there is some groundwork that needs to be done before we start. So there's three main sections really. So I guess the first thing is the suggestions that you get out of Copilot, they can only ever be as good as the data you have. And that's why it's really important to make sure that these sections in the slide here are worked on and worked through before you actually start putting Copilot in any significant kind of importance in your organisation, if you like. So if we look at centralising your data first, fairly reasonably simple one. This one, making sure that all your data that you have, all the data that you want to address is in Microsoft 365. So, is it all in SharePoint? Is it all reachable? If it's sitting on like shared network drives, for example, that's not something that Copilot can go and reach natively. It needs to all be brought into SharePoint. So if you're wanting to make use of that information so that Copilot can help you understand it, then you need to bring it into Microsoft 365. You need to bring it into SharePoint or something similar, OneDrive or somewhere like that, so that you can so it can understand it and index it. Then making sure what data is available to be presented. So by that, what we mean are, how do you make sure that it's the latest version that people are always seeing? So if I write a prompt in Copilot and I want to get some information back, how do I make sure that I've always got the latest version there? How do I make sure that people don't see working versions? So maybe like drafts of things and things that are not quite ready to be seen. And then starting to think about the life cycle of data as well. So, how do I make sure that I'm getting rid of old data? So things that have probably dropped off, and are no longer relevant. Because I don't want people to kind of use Copilot to get them. I don't want Copilot to kind of inform any decisions that they might be making off the back of that as well. So I need to start looking at things like retention. I need to start maybe looking at things like sensitivity labels. I need to start looking at maybe like version history, kind of published versions and those types of things as well. And then lastly, the kind of classifying data. So looking at, how do I define sensitive data? So how do I make sure that any data I have in there that has like health information, credit card data, PII, etc., how do I make sure that's all classified? How do I look at my sharing policies and make sure that I'm not oversharing anything, and actually anything that's sensitive is only restricted to the right people, so that people can't, write a Copilot query and be able to see some of that data because actually they do have access to it. So part of that's just reviewing your access controls as well and just making sure you've got the right groups and everything's locked down. Because Microsoft adheres to the kind of like the security and privacy policies that are in Microsoft 365. So everything that a person has access to in SharePoint or in OneDrive is something that they can go and query. But what we find is happening quite often is that people who are rolling this out, it's been a while since they've looked at their security groups, looked at their security permissions. In some areas, people are able to kind of query and say, oh, actually, I can go and find information that I didn't think I should be able to see. And it's because it's not been locked down properly in SharePoint, or it's been shared with them at one point in somebody's OneDrive, for example. So it's just a case of kind of, pulling that back a little bit and containing that a little bit more. Okay, so now, just before we move on to the effective prompting section, we're going to, Zopash is just going to put up a poll about where you are with preparing your data for Copilot. So hopefully you should see that on the screen in a minute. So if you can just give us your answers to that, that would be appreciated. So just while you're doing that, I've just noticed a question there from Alex about the HR example and asking Copilot to assess a candidate's CV. So it's a good question there. Will the input be remembered by the LLM, and does the input leave the organization's Microsoft infrastructure and umbrella? So this, in the context of Copilot, it's an interesting one because when I come onto the licensing, there's obviously licensing associated with it. But part of what you're paying for Copilot is that nothing leaves the tenant. So it is the one kind of like large language model, if you like, that you can use. And Microsoft actually, as part of that license, indemnifies the fact that all that data is secure. So you can confidently look at things like CVs that are already in your tenant and query them. And none of that is going out to kind of retrain the model. None of that is going out into the wild. It's all contained within the Microsoft 365 tenant. So that's the kind of one difference, if you like, between that and basic, what I would say, basic like ChatGPT. To take one, not the only one, but one of the other examples. If you just go and use ChatGPT and you fire some information up into it, then you're actually posting that information up for the model to use. Whereas that's not the case in Copilot as well. Okay, so just moving on to effective prompting then. So just having a look at the prompts that you would use in Copilot and how that works. So there's a couple of do's and don'ts there about how you make an ask of Copilot. We're looking for, Copilot is looking for it to be clear and specific. So so don't give it conflicting instructions. Give it some examples, some clear examples. Don't be vague, and provide details. Try not to use slang or informal or technical language. Prompts can be made up of 4 different parts. So you effectively got the goal, so what do you want from Copilot? You've got the context, so why do you need it and who's involved? You've got the expectations, so how should Copilot respond to best fulfill that request for you? And then you've got the source, so what information or samples do you want Copilot to use? So as an example, you might say, I want a list of 3 to 5 bullet points to prepare me for an upcoming meeting with client X, focusing on their current state, what they're looking to achieve. Respond with a tone that's friendly but authoritative, and focus on email and Teams chats with certain people over the last few weeks. So that's the kind of breakdown of the prompts that you would get. They don't all have to be all 4 sections at the time. So simple prompts here, some ideas here, like give me some ideas, help me write, translate a message. Some of these simple ones are a good way to get started, and then it's easier to kind of refine. So, some examples like create a short presentation on time management for me, give me ideas for a 3-day trip to London, what's on my radar this week. Those kind of simple ones work quite well. But if you're looking to try and get a specific answer for something, it's quite good to start with a fairly simple prompt. and then narrow it down. So wait till it gives you the answer back and then try and narrow it down from there as well. There's a good section on the Microsoft website about prompts. So I'll post that into the chat because it's quite useful. It gives you some good examples across all the different sections of Copilot and how that can be used. Okay, and then just moving on to the kind of Copilot licensing aspect then. So I think we've got another poll just up here about whether you've got a license or not and how you're using that already. So Zolpash will just put that up. If you don't mind just responding to that, would be great. So in terms of the licensing, this is the bit that everyone's interested in. Copilot from Microsoft 365 is the most common starting point license. Unfortunately, this comes on top of any kind of premium or enterprise plans that you've got. It also, at the moment, has a yearly commitment, although this can now, depending on how you buy your licenses, so if you buy your licenses through something called CSP, which is effectively direct with partners like ourselves, then this Copilot license can now be aligned with your license renewal for your enterprise plans. So say you have a whole bunch of like enterprise plans for Office, say E3s, for example, if they all end in, say, June time, you can actually tie your Copilot license so that you're buying the Copilot license now, you pay a pro rata amount up until June, and then in June it will renew along with your enterprise licenses. So you effectively are paying the pro rata instead of the full yearly. The only thing is that you do need to renew when it comes to the end of the year as well. So there is some things that you can do to kind of to help with that. The usual kind of justification, as I've talked about in some of the previous slides, is really around that time saving aspect. So if you think if you've got people who can save, a couple of hours a month, a few hours a month, then that £24.70, that's effectively going to, pay to that, them being more productive, if you like. That's the kind of ROI, that's the kind of way that Microsoft are pushing this and the way that they're looking to sell that as well. There is more recently, looks like there's now a 15% reduction on that for non-profits. And the one thing that's recently been renewed as well, which kind of related to licensing, but I just wanted to highlight in this webinar, was there's a newly released self-serve option. So if you do not want people to be able to go into your Microsoft tenant and effectively just start a Microsoft 365 Copilot trial using a credit card, you do need to go into the admin center and switch that off. So Microsoft are kind of putting in a release, putting in bits into Microsoft 365, and one of the options that's going to come in, if it's not in there already, it's fairly new, so it might not be in everyone's tenant already, is the ability for people to kind of self-serve and sign up to Copilot subscriptions. So as I say, if you don't want that and you don't want your organization to be using that and you want to manage your own kind of Copilot rollout, then I would advise you to go into the admin center or check the admin center from time to time and see if that option is there. And then when it becomes available, switch off the option that allows them to kind of self-serve. You'll find that in the admin center under the Copilot section. So I'm going to hand you over now to Josh to talk about how to extend what I've talked about, the kind of base Copilot offering around, Word, Excel, Teams, etc. And he's going to talk about some of the scenarios about how you can extend that into further areas as well.
Yeah, thanks, Graham. Hi, everyone. We've looked at getting kind of the groundwork in place and getting everything ready to use Copilot. But there will come a point where you'll probably want to extend Copilot above and beyond what it's doing out of the box. And there's some options available for that. So we're going to focus mainly on Copilot Studio in this session today for that. And what is Copilot Studio? It's previously known as Power Virtual Agents, part of the Power Platform. They rebranded it, I think, early this year, late last year, to Copilot Studio. Effectively, it's this low-code platform designed to help you create and customize AI-powered assistants, known as copilots, and integrate into M365 applications. So it offers like a graphical visual interface to actually design and build these assistants, and you don't really need to be like a programmer to get started with it. It's a low code interface. So with that in mind, what can you do with it? So I've already mentioned it integrates with M365, so you can enhance existing applications like Teams, SharePoint, even things like Word and Excel. You can deploy these agents directly within these tools to further enhance and streamline that workflow. The big one is being able to connect to data sources. So you can use pre-built or custom plugins to link to various data sources. That makes them more efficient and responsive and a bit more meaningful for those workloads that require it. Yeah, so it's useful for that kind of next step. It allows us to kind of streamline those processes even further, improve things like customer engagement and boost productivity. So that extensibility piece is, being able to take that that Copilot that you've got, put it into Copilot Studio, extend it, and kind of transform that kind of data and that conversational bot that you've got using data outside of M365, and that's going to increase kind of that productivity. And it works in tandem with things that we've mentioned, Microsoft Graph, so it all kind of leverages the same kind of tools behind the scenes to do that. And it creates this really nice, neat kind of solution for you. So if we look at bringing some examples of this to life within Copilot Studio, what you could do with it, we've kind of picked out 3 here. The first being IT service, things like issue tracking, for example, or if you have IT help desk, you've got an end user that's looking to submit a ticket, but before they submit the ticket, the Copilot pops up on the screen and says, have you tried these suggestions? Have you looked at this knowledge base article to help you resolve the problem? So it's helping kind of drive those tickets down a little bit by giving kind of generative and kind of insightful answers to hopefully kind of resolve the problem before they get to an actual human agent. Another example there is if you need to do order like a replacement bit of kit, for your work, rather than going to the IT service desk and having to deal with a person and maybe lengthy delays to get that sorted, you could deal with a Copilot that does that for you instead. Next up, we've got like a customer-facing Copilot. So that's actually embedding a Copilot on, maybe your portal or your business websites, allowing for users to gain insightful information relating to, that portal or that website, and guide them through things like processes such as, if they're logging in to get receipts or track an order, then it can help with that. And again, just drive that kind of engagement directly from within that Copilot. And lastly, we've got human resources. It's typically quite a process-heavy kind of function within a business. So Copilot can kind of bring all of that process and simplify it a little bit by kind of bringing all of these different maybe data sources or these different process touch points together into one kind of convenient way. The example used here is onboarding. So, typically quite a lengthy kind of process that involves multiple different departments. Copilot can kind of unify that, bring it all together, make it a lot more simpler and streamlined. So yeah, obviously, Copilot Studio is one of a number of tools that you can use to kind of customize Copilot. So when we look at custom Copilots as a whole, and from a department level, we see a few different kind of examples there as well. The kind of big kind of key here is that, as we've already mentioned, is things like data sources. We can tap into the Power Platform data connectors. I think there's over 3,000 now out of the box. So you can tap into your organizational data wherever it lives. And if by chance your kind of business data isn't already part of that kind of connector pool, you can build a custom connector and leverage that. So there's very little chance that you can't interact with your business data using these connectors. And when we look at some of these examples here by kind of department, we've got customer service. So the benefit there is being able to reduce things like call volume, provide quick resolutions to maybe commonly asked questions or commonly common asked things from users. And again, just gives you quick answers enriched with that data, that custom data. We've got finance, so being able to do things like automate budgets and expenses, approvals, all of that type of stuff. So if you use things like SAP or Dynamics, being able to kind of leverage all of that stuff and make it really streamlined and easy to get to what's needed done, and just really bring that process in and make it quicker to get end to end with it. And again, lastly, HR again, obviously just talked about that, but some other examples there includes signing up for healthcare plans or booking time off, office issues, typical kind of HR things, rather than having to, email someone in HR and wait a reply. Copilot would already be kind of intelligent enough. It's already been kind of connected with all that data, so it can give you the answers to all of that stuff or get you where you need to go really, really quickly in comparison. So that's just a few examples there and kind of a very quick whistle-stop tour of kind of those things you can do with extending it and those kind of next steps once you've kind of got ready. In terms of what's next, so we've touched on quite a few things here, but it is quite daunting if you're at the start of your journey. You're interested, you're seriously looking at what you want to do with Copilot. Typically, a partner like ourselves, we can help with that. We offer the Copilot readiness assessment, so we take all of that stuff that we've just talked about in principle. We kind of help assess where you are on that kind of journey, and we kind of help you build a bit of a roadmap to get to that kind of next step, that level where you're very much ready to use Copilot and roll out towards the organization. Other services we can provide as well as that kind of resources for Copilot, being able to be a kind of trusted advisor on that and give you advice on any aspect of, Copilot and extending and all of that kind of stuff. And that's it. I'll hand back over to Zopash now, for the final kind of outro slides. And yeah, thank you very much.
Yeah, sure. So yeah, there's any questions at all before we kind of finish up? That's mainly the bulk of the session there. So if there's any questions at all, please do add them to the chat and we'll see if the guys can answer them. I think Graham, you had a question there earlier on, didn't you, about the licensing? I don't know if you wanted to talk a bit more about that. And I think Kevin's put something in there into the chat there just now as well.
Yeah, sure. So there were a couple there. So I think Alex Evans. So I've gone back on the chat, but yeah, effectively just for anyone that hasn't seen that, just asking about the kind of custom copilots that Josh was asking. Josh was talking about around, if one does get deployed, then does everyone that uses that need another license? And effectively the way the kind of custom copilots work are you buy that license to kind of create the custom copilot and it's like capacity based. So for people that are then consuming that copilot, they're using some of the capacity. And then if you're fine with the baseline capacity, that's okay. If it starts to gain a lot of traction and you need more people, then you effectively just buy more capacity. So effectively every time somebody interacts with that Copilot, they're using up a little bit of that capacity to out of the license. So that's the way the license works for the custom Copilots. So it's different from the kind of license that I showed with just the normal Copilot for Microsoft 365, which is user based. So you do need that for the basic one on a per user basis. So just looking at Kevin's message here. So since moving to Windows 11, I now have the Copilot icon that I've been using to answer specific questions. It's great. Is it a freebie from MS to give us a flavour of its power? So yes, it is. Yeah, it's effectively a kind of more basic version, if you like, of Copilot. When you're asking that, you're asking questions out to the web. So you're using kind of Copilot for the web. So it's not restricted to your tenant. So one thing to just note is when you're asking questions, just make sure that you're not putting any kind of business specific information in there. But yeah, you can go and ask it, general questions, and it'll come back with the answers. So it's starting to show a bit of the power. The licensed version then comes with all that kind of constraint around Microsoft 365, be able to use it in the individual products, be able to kind of like indemnify everything that you do within that tenant and not leaving the tenant as well. So that's the kind of part that you're paying for. So is this capacity distinct for Copilot, or is the same capacity shared across other Power Platform products? So it is distinct. So it's separate for Copilot. So Power Automate has its own ones like AI Builder, and some of these others have their own kind of capacity licenses as well. But the Copilot one is distinct. So it's a different kind of capacity that you're using up. Yeah. And then Josh is fortunately, he's answered the same thing that I answered, so we're on the same page there, which is good. Okay. Any other questions or anything else that anybody wants to know?
That's
Nope.
pretty much it with time. Yep.
Great. Thanks for that.
Yeah.
So, yeah, let's hand you back to Zopash to kind of wrap up.
Sounds good. Perfect. So yeah, no, that's us. We'll wrap up there then. Thank you so much for everybody who answered questions there. And obviously, as we know, usually if you think about anything later on, please do get in touch. So I just wanted to very quickly thank Graham and Josh for a really insightful session today. And we hope that you found it useful. And we're going to be sending you a follow-up shortly with the slides and the recording. So if you do have any questions that you think of, please do get in touch. Contact us at bridgel.com. I will put all the details within in the chat here as well, so you can have a wee look there. We don't have any webinars coming up for the end of this year. That's done with the webinars for now, but for next year we will be working on other various different webinars, so please do keep in touch and have a wee look at our Eventbrite page where we'll be updating everything. So yeah, just thank you once again, and we hope you enjoyed the session. We hope you see you at a future session soon. Thanks so much. Bye.